Trump administration is continuing to make it clear that peace through strength means ensuring that strength is backed up, not just with words, but with action. Here is the very latest from the White House. Watch.
We are confident, yes, that Iran's nuclear sites were completely and totally obliterated, as the president said in his address to the nation on Saturday night. And we have a high degree of confidence that where those strikes took place is where Iran's enriched uranium was stored. The president wouldn't have launched the strikes if we weren't confident in that. So this operation was a resounding success, and administration officials agree with that, as well as Israel.
And this was a precise and clandestine operation. Not only was there not a leak beforehand, there weren't even shots fired on U.S. aircraft on the way in or the way out. Here is the Defense Department on how it all went down. Take a look.
Last night, on the President's orders, U.S. Central Command, under the command of General Eric Kurilla, executed Operation Midnight Hammer, a deliberate and precise strike against 3 Iranian nuclear facilities. This was a complex and high-risk mission carried out with exceptional skill and discipline by our joint force. I want to thank every service member, planner, operator that made this mission possible. Their actions reflect the highest standards of the United States Armed Forces. This operation was designed to severely degrade Iran's nuclear weapons infrastructure. It was planned and executed across multiple domains and theaters with coordination that reflects our ability to project power globally with speed and precision at the time and place of our nation's choosing. This was a highly classified mission with very few people in Washington knowing the timing or nature of this plan. I'll refer you to the graphic on the side as I walk you through some of the operational details. At midnight Friday into Saturday morning, a large B-2 strike package comprised of bombers launched from the continental United States. As part of the plan to maintain tactical surprise, part of the package proceeded to the west and into the Pacific as a decoy, a deception effort known only to an extremely small number of planners and key leaders here in Washington and in Tampa. The main strike package, comprised of 7 B-2 Spirit bombers, each with 2 crew members, proceeded quietly to the east with minimal communications. Throughout the 18-hour flight into the target area, the aircraft completed multiple in-flight refuelings. Once over land, the B-2s linked up with escort and support aircraft in a complex, tightly timed maneuver requiring exact synchronization across multiple platforms in a narrow piece of airspace, all done with minimal communications.
But rather than support our nation against its enemies, Democrats are doubling down on the same destructive rhetoric, even calling for impeachment. Here's far-left Congressman Jasmine Crockett angry that President Trump didn't consult with her before making the decision. Watch.
And we are living in this time in which there is someone who is occupying the White House who does not care about any rules, any norms, any laws, nor the Constitution, and we cannot be a civilized country if there is no law and order. So I know they may claim we law and order, blah, blah, blah. So go get the undocumented people and let's try to ship them out. Let me tell you something. They are not the people that are putting us in harm's way. It is him and his administration that is putting us in harm's way. I am telling you right now that I legitimately have had no intel whatsoever. Zero intel as a sitting member of Congress, regardless of how you feel about me, regardless of my party affiliation. No one has consulted specifically with me or anybody in my office to give us any information.
And that's just one example of the left-wing lunacy on display day in and day out. And today we'll get into all of it with one of your very, very favorite guests, Roger Stone. So make sure you are liking, sharing, subscribing, and turning on notifications so you never miss these major episodes. And of course, don't forget about our sponsors for having the guts to support this program. So be sure to check out the 1775 Coffee Company. We talk about it all the time. Don't compromise on taste, on quality, or your values. And 1775 coffee is brewed to perfection. It is crafted with precision and built on patriotism. The farm to cup process means there is quality, authenticity, and sustainability from start to finish. All the beans are ethically and exclusively single sourced. So try 1775 coffee today. Go to 1775coffee.com/KG for 15% off your first order. And joining me now, WABC radio host of the Stone Zone, iconic political strategist, the one and only Roger Stone. Thank you so much for being on the program with us.
Kimberly, it's always great to be with you.
Yeah, and you're doing so well. You are so busy, a lot to talk about, but I know you love this. We live for it. We're witnessing basically, not just American political history, but just, issues, actions, et cetera, affecting the whole world. We talk a lot, Roger, about the Trump doctrine. What do you see as far as assessing, this weekend's strikes and the strategy and deliberation? Think about that, the thought process that went into it.
Well, first of all, Kimberly, thank God that it's Donald J. Trump making these decisions and not, say, Joe Biden or, God forbid, Kamala Harris. The president could not have been clearer. 15 separate times during the campaign, he made it absolutely clear that there were no circumstances under which the Iranian lunatics, homicidal maniacs, would be allowed to have a nuclear bomb. He could not have been clearer. Now, that doesn't mean that he is in the George W. Bush, Dick Cheney school of neocon thinking. He's made it very clear in that great speech in Riyadh that we're not into regime change or nation building. In fact, his election was a repudiation of all of that. That doesn't mean that he won't use America power when he needs to. And in this case, I trust the president. I trust the president and his team, first-rate team, Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard. They had the intelligence. They knew what was going on. And he made, I think, a great decision. No boots on the ground, no prolonged regime change war. And by the way, he hits them and then he immediately says, hey, you guys want to come back to the table and talk? This is what I voted for, that's for sure.
You're so right. It really is a shining, bright example of how leadership truly matters. It's not Bush. It's not Obama. This is Trump all the way. The messenger, Roger, matters here. And President Trump has been very consistent all along the way that Iran cannot have a nuke. And he's backing those words up with action. I mean, the world is watching and listening.
Well, the other thing that impressed me was the operational secrecy. There were no leaks out of this White House.
Very much so, yes.
No leaks out of this Pentagon. No leaks out of the national security apparatus. And then secondarily, the president understands that they watch him very carefully to try to read things. So you notice how he misled them, which I think is diplomacy. I think I'll take 2 weeks, he said. And then he hit them with a devastating round. Now, it's amazing to me, two things. One, the way some folks who were never actually MAGA, people who supported Ted Cruz,
correct,
who now suddenly decide that they're the leaders of this movement. There's one leader of the MAGA movement, one leader of the America First movement. That's Donald Trump. He gets to decide what America First means. And then secondarily, the Democrats, who had no problem whatsoever with Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden saying, they can't have a bomb, and if they try, we're going to hit them, and we're going to hit them hard. That was perfectly all right for them. But now they're criticizing President Trump, saying, "Oh, he has violated the War Powers Act. He needed the approval of Congress for this action." It's both legally and politically incorrect, and it's hypocritical.
Yeah, and the president did offer some context as well. I want to talk a little bit about the regime change. You heard a lot of that rhetoric over the weekend, and writing, if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? Now, reading between the lines, you're an expert at that. Decode that for us. What do you make of it?
Well, I think the president's just dealing with reality. First of all, even though the New York Times tries to ignore this, there are alternatives to the current Iranian regime, short of the Shah's son, who is probably more hated by the Iranian people than the brutal current regime. I had a meeting, Kimberly, about, I would say a little less than a month ago. We're supposed to be 3 gentlemen flew here from Paris who were in the Iranian resistance, but only 2 of them showed up. And I basically said, what happened to the 3rd guy? They said, oh, he was assassinated.
Yeah,
so these people really have taken their lives in their hands to stand up for the future freedom of their country. There's a very viable resistance on the ground in Iran. So there are alternatives. So what I think the president was saying is, if this inadvertently leads to regime change, that would not be a bad thing. Having somebody committed to peace at the head of the Iranian government, someone who can get along with their neighbors, would be a great thing. That's not his purpose, but I think he was saying if that should be the byproduct of what we have done here, well, that would be a good thing for world peace. And the president's right.
You know, over the years and just studying this for a long time like you have, there's a lot of the youth, of Iran that are not happy with the direction of the country, of what's happening with this, radical, supporter state sponsors of terrorism, what's been going on in Iran. Talk about that, because obviously there's sensitivity. You don't want innocent people to be killed in the process. And now I just imagine there's quite a bit of discussion going on in Iran about what their next steps are.
Well, one of the things that impressed me when the president visited Saudi Arabia and then Qatar was his commitment to get food, aid, and medicine to the people of Gaza. Donald Trump doesn't like human suffering more than anyone else. And he's trying to strike the right balance here in the region. I think this was very strategic. His trip there, which was both good for the United States, fostering better relationships with our allies, such as the Saudis, as well as his sending Tom Barrack, one of his closest friends, one of the most able men that I know, to be his ambassador to Turkey, sending you to Greece, one of the other sensitive spots in the world. Not a career diplomat, not some bureaucrat from the State Department, but one of his closest friends, someone he knows and trusts. I think this demonstrates his sensitivity to the entire region. Young people should recognize that if you're in favor of freedom, and most importantly, if you want peace, then Donald Trump is really the only way to go. I think, by the way, he did this all reluctantly. I think he deliberated about this very carefully because he understood the ramifications. But I stand with him 100%. What really aggravates me are these people who second guess him.
I know.
These people who are the self-appointed leaders of the MAGA movement, some of whom, many of whom weren't even really for him in 2016, and others who are really not in his circle, but try to pretend that they are.
Yeah, it's very frustrating to me because, we know the truth, do we not? And he knows the truth. Let me tell you something. He is nobody's fool. The man is so smart and intelligent, and he's got very keen, sharp instincts. He really does make very good decisions. There's no, accident that he's been so successful and what he's been able to, accomplish. But I want to touch on one point, I think, as well, that you made that I know and have seen personally, that he does not like human suffering. He really is trying to achieve, peace through strength. And bottom line is that he doesn't want people to be innocents to be killed. He wants to stop it so that Iran doesn't go and start a nuclear war, murdering innocent people. That's why he's so upset, about Russia and Ukraine. I really believe that whole thing could have been prevented had he been, in office. I don't believe it would have occurred.
Well, and look at some of his accomplishments already. He does deserve a Nobel Peace Prize for bringing peace between India and Pakistan. He does deserve a Nobel Peace Prize for getting peace between the Congo and Rwanda. Just two examples.
Exactly.
And he's going to solve the situation between Ukraine and Russia. Takes patience, takes strength. It's kind of interesting to watch. He seems to get one side put together and then the other side falls apart. Then he gets them ready. And by then the Ukrainians have fallen apart. But he's committed to the process. And he's right. He said this and it made me laugh. They'll never give him the Nobel Peace Prize. These elitists just cannot admit his extraordinary success. But the important thing, as he pointed out, is the people know. The people know what he's doing, and people know what he's done.
Yeah, and big picture, let's talk about this. He's early in his administration, but how much of a legacy defining moment will this be for the president? And what could it mean, for the months ahead? I get the focus. We'll try to obviously tackle the insurmountable problems with Russia and Ukraine, but talk about Trump's legacy as it relates to what we just all experienced this weekend.
Well, first of all, it's a different path than the one we've been on. And I don't think everybody fully understands that yet. For example, does the president understand that these actions in Iran are going to have implications in terms of the cost of fuel here in this country? Yes, he gets it, which is why he's trying to maximize production here in the United States, and why I'm certain that he's talking to others of his allies to pick up the slack if the Iranians do shut down the Strait of Hormuz, which I think they're going to try. On the other hand, Ronald Reagan destroyed the Iraqi Navy pretty quickly.
Yes.
I would not test Donald Trump when it comes to the use of American power on a limited basis. But
yeah, he will not.
There is a great luxury in having a president who's not going to run for re-election, doesn't have to run for re-election, has no intention of running for re-election, and therefore, other than his desire to win the midterms, which, a lot of the Chicken Littles are already saying, oh, we're not going to win the midterm. How in the world would you know that? In politics, a week is a lifetime. This economy, particularly if this incompetent, politically motivated head of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, who, by the way, is a lawyer and not even an economist, if he will cut rates like he should, like he did for Joe Biden, look at the rate of inflation, incredibly low, historically low, actually, lower than when he cut rates to try to benefit Biden's reelection. That guy needs to either cut rates or frankly needs to resign. But if that happens, along with the big, beautiful bill, the largest tax cut on the American people in U.S. history, this economy will be roaring by the midterms. And history will take care of itself. The president has to take all of these things into consideration when he makes these decisions. I'm confident, based on my own conversations with him, that he definitely has. These are life and death decisions.
Yeah.
He doesn't go into these things lightly. I like somebody who is deliberative. I like somebody who puts America first.
Me too.
All those things have to be seen in context. The biggest scandal today, if you ask me, is this Federal Reserve. We don't have the data. That's what this guy says. This is why my good friend Barry Habib, who's probably one of the leading experts on mortgages and housing in the United States, he calls him too late Powell, which is perfect. They have all the data they need. They need to cut rates right now.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. So we've got to focus on, there's so many different balls in the air right now with this. But meanwhile, also Democrats are like spinning in circles. Last week, it was impeachment. Remember this, for deploying the National Guard to California. This week, it's impeachment for striking Iran. This is clearly a reactionary Democrat Party without a purpose or serious, policy position on much of anything.
Well, first of all, they tried to tell us that the protests in Los Angeles were peaceful. I don't know, those burning police cars, those protesters throwing rocks and bottles and cement and little baggies of urine and feces
So disgusting.
And ICE agents. That didn't look too peaceful to me. And the president was absolutely right in mobilizing the National Guard. He was also right to send in the Marines. This is a sign that if you want to try to do this elsewhere, if you have this in mind in other cities, Antifa, BLM, the radical left, well, Donald Trump is going to act decisively there as well. And of course, the courts backed him up in terms of his authority. Then you had the No Kings March. Looking at these people, obviously the No Kings part did not include Burger King, because some of these women were,
Oh my God.
what can I tell you? I mean, geez.
Burger King's like, why are you blaming us? Blame it on McDonald's.
I mean, talk about a gigantic flopperoo. This was one of the great flops of all time. They actually had to cancel the No Kings March here in Hollywood, Florida, for lack of interest. The American people are very happy with this president. If you see a poll that shows that his policies are unpopular, that he's unpopular, what you see is a poll that's been rigged. What you see is a poll where the sample size has been manipulated, or where the wording of the questions has been manipulated. I have yet to meet a single person who told me I voted for Donald Trump and I regret it. Not
Right.
one. And I traveled to and from Louisiana this weekend. I met several hundred people. I met a few people who said, wow, I didn't vote for Trump and now I regret it. But I didn't meet a single person who voted for the president and thought they made a bad decision.
No, you're right about that. I just don't understand just like the eagerness that I see on full display, that Democrats, they want to go to bat for rioters, illegal aliens. I mean, I don't understand the thought process here. And I guess, they also want to back and our, foreign adversaries. It makes no sense.
It really doesn't. I'm not sure who they think the constituency is out there among the American people that will vote for this. In other words,
Exactly.
they're prioritizing dangerous, illegal gangbangers and gang members and criminals over the average American family. There are no votes in that. That view is not even compassionate. That view is naive and misguided.
Yeah.
Their constant use of judicial tyranny, in other words, going forum shopping and finding some crazy left-wing judge who will try to hold the president's policies up, is really despicable, particularly in the area of trade. I mean, I never heard of the International Court of Trade. Didn't even know that it existed. Turns out it's in Manhattan. That figures.
Shocking.
3 judges try to tell the president of the United States that he doesn't have the authority to negotiate a tariff deal with one of our trading partners. This is insanity.
Yeah.
Now,
Under what authority do they have?
the
It's
appeals
crazy.
court knocked that down, and I think they will finally put the kibosh on it. But it's about delaying his agenda. It's the same thing with Jerome Powell and the Fed. They want to delay the inevitable Trump boom. This could be and will be, I think, the greatest economy in American history if these courts, who really are exceeding their authority, you know more about this than I do, but that are clearly overreaching in terms of their authority, will just get the hell out of the way.
Yeah, it's bananas, and they keep getting overturned, but they don't care. They're just in love with obstruction, and don't stand for anything and just want to, go after Trump. It's just like a broken record for impeachment every single time. It's just bananas. It's a very reflexive, very sophomoric way to look at things, and certainly no way to govern. Let's get a little history lesson, Mr. Stone, shall we? Let's talk about what parallels there are in this moment in time to Nixon and Reagan.
Well, there's, I think, a very, very clear parallel with Richard Nixon. In 1973, really due to a failure of Israeli intelligence, the Syrians and the Egyptians mounted a surprise attack on Israel, and Israel was caught short of ammunition, and their backs were against the sea. Really, the existence of Israel was very much in question. And Golda Meir, then the prime minister, reached out to President Nixon for immediate assistance, but his national security advisors were opposed. The Pentagon was opposed. Henry Kissinger, who was himself, of course, Jewish, was opposed. They all said, well, it might upset the Russians. It might expand the war. Nixon, like Trump, courageously overruled all of them, ordered a massive airlift of, I think, 33,000 tons of tanks, bullets, ammunition, medicine. Another 33,000 tons went by ship, but they were airlifted to the Israelis, and Israel was saved. This was not without some cost to us. Probably did lead to the oil embargo that followed, but it was statesmanship. There would be literally no Israel today if it were not for President Richard Nixon. Now, later on, people would point out to things that he said in the Watergate tapes that sounded anti-Semitic or anti-Jewish, and it was Golda Meir, the Israeli prime minister, who defended him, saying, deeds are what matter, not words, deeds. And so it is with Donald Trump. He made a very hard decision here, but he made the right decision for us and the right decision for his allies.
So from a political standpoint, Roger, where do you see the Republican Party as we, sort of look ahead, which I can't even believe we're talking about it, but the midterms, I was thinking about it, talking about it yesterday. Can't believe we're thinking about that right now already, but of course we need to. What do you think the strategy and the messaging for this upcoming cycle should be that you think would be most effective?
Well, I think there's two pieces of good news. Donald Trump has a platform, and by then he will have developed even further a record to run on. It will be a record of national security. It will be a record of free speech. It'll be a record of economic prosperity. It'll be a record of law and order. Democrats, really, they have nothing to run on other than that they hate Donald Trump. That's kind of it. That's their whole message. We hate Donald Trump. Not much of a platform to run on if you're an average working class family.
Yeah.
What I do think is a mistake is all these people who are trying to handicap 2028. I think that's counterproductive. First of all, it's light years from now politically, and it will sort itself out over time. The Republican Party has a very strong vice president in J.D. Vance, who I think is doing an amazing job supporting the president. There will be others probably interested, but there's plenty of time to sort that out. Donald Trump is just warming up. I still believe when all is said and done, we're about to enter a golden age here, a golden age ultimately of peace and prosperity, security, justice, and this is very important, law and order. Trump will have a solid record by then, and he's got the record actually of his first term in a strange way, but also a solid record in the first 2 years of this term. We're only a handful more than 100 days in, and look at the revenues that he's brought in from tariffs. All those people said, oh, inflation's going to go wild. Inflation's incredibly low. And if he gets the big, beautiful bill, which is absolutely crucial, those tax cuts, the largest in American history, are absolutely crucial. I shouldn't say if, when we get the big, beautiful bill.
Manifest.
And by the way, there's a few things in there that I don't like, the AI language, but that's not the final bill. This has to go through the Senate, also has to go through conference. So I think the big, beautiful bill will get improved as we go along. If those things happen, then you're going to have a record economy here, something the American people will appreciate by the midterms.
So you think so we always try to forecast what are going to be the most important issues, just like we did going into the election, the border issues, immigration as it relates to national security. There's obviously been a tremendous amount of accomplishments there. And by the way, I hope everything is going all right with Secretary Kristi Noem. What do you think? I want to just get kind of your touch points on that situation. I think it frames the president very good, obviously for his supporters, except, the Democrats, they want a lot of criminal illegals in the country for some reason.
Here's what I think will be important. Number one, the inflation rate will be important. Number two, the availability of affordable housing, which is a crucial issue, will be important. The tax rate on the American people will be important. The affordability of food and gasoline, offshoots of those other issues, those will be important. But the safety of your own neighborhood, the safety of your own community, whether you can go outside at night without fear of being hit overhead by some illegal immigrant who's a gang member. Crazy. Those are things that will be important to the American people. And on all of those measures, I think America will be stronger and safer by the midterm elections. Look, the president understands that there are risks in the actions that he took this weekend, but he made a calculated decision that all of this will be worth it. And I think he will be proven to be absolutely correct.
So in that same theme, let's talk about, because it's always our favorite way to go out with a bang. What are Stone's rules, for the months ahead? Like when you think about it, you see where we are now. What would you like to focus on and accomplish and see if you had your Stone's political crystal ball?
This is always tough because there's a lot of applicable rules. But I guess the most important one is never quit. And I think that explains and defines Donald Trump better than anything else. He's resilient. He has an enormous amount of stamina, an enormous amount of courage, an enormous amount of energy. I just don't know.
It's unbelievable.
I honestly don't know how the man does it, because it seems like he almost never sleeps. And he gets to decide what America first means, no one else. So the most important thing here is his persistence and this prism through which he makes every decision. Not, is it best for this one or that one, but what's best for America? This is why I completely trust him. He's already going to go down in the history books as one of our greatest presidents, just based on the results of his first term. Wait until you see this economy at the end of 4 years. Wait till you see America's place in the world at the end of 4 years. The Democrats have nothing to offer but hate and distortion. This is going to be a golden period, as some have said.
Yes. And so let's talk about you. Where can we listen to you at WABC, one of the best in the country, and what's coming up on your show?
Thank you very much for asking. So I'm now doing at 77 WABC, the most powerful AM radio station in America. You can find me there every night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. You just go to WABCradio.com, any place in the country. In fact, any place in the world, WABCradio.com at 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 nights a week. And then on Sundays from 3 to 5 in the afternoon, again, 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern, it's the Roger Stone Show, once again at WABCradio.com. Tonight, we are going to talk about how Letitia James, who has now been accused of covering up sexual harassment by her chief of staff, and is also under fire for killing a company that had a solution for sickle cell anemia. We're going to talk about her problems in addition to the serial mortgage fraud. Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York, who says no person is above the law. Well, that turns out to apply to her too. Mm-hmm. Tonight on the show. Thanks.
I love it so much. All right, we will all tune and listen in. The one and only, the iconic Roger Stone, proud to call him my friend. Thank you for coming on the program. We always absolutely love it. And everyone, please go check out the Stone Zone and tune in to him on WABC. You're going to hear a lot about Letitia tonight. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kimberly. God bless you.
God bless. And in closing, President Trump is showing what strong leadership looks like and not letting the Washington status quo